All right. Just wanted to do a quick video asking a question because lately I just been chilling in the cut. Don't know if it's just the change of the season or whatnot, but just really haven't been in the mood to really do much outside of what it takes to maintain my family and children and my wife. But just kind of had a thought because some of what I would consider disturbing things that I see sometimes come across my timeline from people who I just wouldn't never expect to see certain things. And my major concern, a major concern of mine is the what's the word I'm looking for? The disposableness of men and boys really disturbs me. See, I'll just say this quick story to kind of highlight why it's important to me. See, when I was younger and I didn't really have, I won't say I didn't have fear, and not that I have fear now, but I didn't really have fear when I was younger. When I was in my 20s, even in my late 20s, I wasn't really, I didn't fear conflict. And so the point I'm trying to make is if something came down to me and it required me to put my comfort on the line, it's involving me, so I would not have a problem doing so. But when I had my first son, that kind of changed because I no longer was just living for myself and for my wife. I now was living for my wife and for my son, which I have to raise to be a man. And then when I had my second son, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, I knew it before. It was kind of like, all right, not so serious. Now it's dead ass serious right now. And then because we weren't really, planning on having another child, when my third son was born, then it was like, all right, it's dead ass serious right now. And so it concerns me when people are okay with men being accused of sexual assault or vaguely being accused of being in a compromising position with essentially no proof. I saw a story that Tommy Sotomayor did about the school teacher that only got 10 years of probation for literally committing sexual assault. And there was not only not proof in the sense of there was DNA proof, but there was photographic proof. There was teachers that saw suspicious behaviors from this lady, who all basically choreographed that this lady was probably not on the up and up. And then she later admitted and took a plea deal and only received 10 years of probation, and she is still allowed to teach. Most of the time, had that been a man, he would have lost everything. He would have been thrown underneath the jail for probably 20 years or more and never allowed to teach again. And so I'm begged to ask the question, because I'm seeing a lot of this come from women on my timeline. One was it really annoyed me. And the thing about it is, with me, it was I was once on that left liberal leaning side. So it's like I understand it, but then like the newer me is like, that's stupid. So there was one meme that someone posted that it shouldn't matter how long it takes a victim to come forward as long as they come forward. No, it should matter. And the problem is not necessarily on the victim's behalf, but it's more if how I feel about it is that it's more of a law enforcement slash victim slash medical people problem. See, the problem is that one, depending on who the alleged victim is or perpetrator is, it's not taken serious. For example, and I've said this many times in real life, and not in real life, but you know what I mean, like on my Facebook, and I said it mentioned it a couple times in my YouTube videos. I worked at a place where I worked in a factory where we packed medical supplies. There was this older white lady who I thought she reminded me of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because that's how she walked. This lady was always looking at me, always giving me the heaviest stuff, the biggest packages. And one of the reasons that I even started taking issue with it was she kept giving me these big orders. Well, when you get these big orders, what we had to do was what they call split them out. So I would have to split it out anywhere from 3 different boxes to probably 6 boxes. But when I would get credit for it, it would be only one package. So I was like, okay, look, I don't mind doing a couple of these in a shift, but you're giving me all of them, and I'm losing out on getting a bonus because we would get bonuses in our paycheck every 2 weeks based on how much we were packing. Well, if I'm packing 6 boxes, I only get a credit for one. I think that would piss anyone off. But then it began to get a little bit stranger beyond that. There was one time where I accidentally forgot to pack something in one of the boxes, so I ran downstairs to catch the box. And where it was almost going into the truck because they had like these conveyor belts and I would throw it in, like kind of drop it off in the truck. So I caught it just in time, and I was in a place in the factory where there's not a lot of human traffic. There's not a lot of people over there. And she's like standing behind the conveyor belt, not saying, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, what happened? She's staring at me. Just staring at me. I turn around and I see her staring at me. And at that point, I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Then it got even weirder when I went to a local grocery store. And guess who I saw there? So then that was like number 2 where I'm like, okay, this is starting to really creep me out. So then we go back to work, and she's then now asking me all these personal questions about where I work on my part-time job and what else do I do. And I'm like, and I told her some bullshit because I didn't want her knowing where I worked on my second job. And then what happened was I got moved. So I went from one side to the other side. And there was a black guy that was there. And then all of a sudden, he mysteriously moves to the other side and she follows me over there. So I go and tell my boss, hey, I think something's going on. I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't really like how she's, distributing my workload because I'm getting all the heavy totes. I'm getting all the multiple packages and it's killing my stats. I'm packing all these packages, but I'm only getting credit for one package. And then I said, the other day, I bent over to pick up a box, and I said, I was in a place where no one should have been even there. And she's like standing, not necessarily right behind me, but like there's the conveyor belt is like separating us. And literally that's the only thing that's separating us. I was laughed at. Now, could you imagine if I was a woman and I said, and my superior was a man? and I said the same thing, would that woman have gotten laughed at? Do you think they would have laughed at a woman who said she didn't feel comfortable because of certain interactions with a particular man that was her boss? Now, I know what you're saying. Oh, it probably happened in my job. It happened here. But this was in the mid 2000s. So this was just at the height of this. We can't have sexual harassment or this and that. That's what it was at the time. It was sexual harassment. So I got laughed at when I presented my situation. There are women who get caught and convicted who don't get half the treatment that a man who's accused of felonious behavior. They lose everything. At what point should I start to hear feminists talk about equality? Because if a woman gets accused of sexual harassment, sexual inappropriate behavior, shouldn't they be getting the same penalties as a man? I would think so, right? We're talking about equality. But it's not really about equality. It's about superiority. And it's about having the license to oppress men, but if a man does the same thing, he loses everything, which is still oppression, but just in the reverse. So I'm not saying that a man should be able to sexually harass anyone. What I am saying is, why is there such a great gulf in double standards when it comes to when a woman sexually harasses a man, as opposed to when a man sexually harasses or allegedly sexually harasses a woman? Because again, there's been numerous stories of teachers, female teachers, especially if they happen to be very attractive and they have blonde hair, maybe blue eyes, they tend to get a lot less severe punishment than, let's say, the ugly lunch lady doing the same thing. But the ugly lunch lady still gets a lot less time than the handsome lunch guy who's doing inappropriate things with teenage children. At what point in time do we say, no, we need to punish the same across the board? If we could throw Bill Cosby in jail for shit that he allegedly did or allegedly admitted to, whatever the case was, then shouldn't we be able to actually, when there's more concrete proof, be able to throw a lot of these women in jail and prison for a lot longer than maybe 10 years of probation? And I'm just using that because that's a story that I just recently read, and watched. So my question is to whoever sees this video, at one point, or is it too late, at what point do you think men will start to stand up and realize we're being fed a lot of bullshit? Because most of the time, when women are crying rape, they're crying it after the fact. And I'm going to tell you this much. If something happens to me, I don't care if no one's trying to listen to me, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep bringing it up. I'm going to keep telling as many people as I can tell. Why? Because it's important to me. Because it's something that violated me. And I don't want it to happen to other people. Because the reality of the situation is, if something happens to me and I never report it, and it happens to someone else, by default that implicates me in it, because I could have tried to stop. Now, whether or not I would have stopped them, I at least would have been shown that I tried to stop this individual from hurting other people. But maybe I'm just thinking with too much logic.